Hi, everyone. I'm Alan Schimmel.
And this is Mitch Ashley.
And you're listening to
DevOps Chats.
All right, to Dumb. Hey, Mitchell, welcome. How are you, man?
Man, it is hopping. I'm doing real well.
It is. We are, getting into conference season where it's no longer the new year. The good news is, some companies are reporting, public companies anyway, in tech have reported strong fourth quarters. Mm-hmm. All the doom and gloom and the layoffs and everything. I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist who thinks this is all jacked up to have these companies to do 25% more with 25% less people. But the numbers tell a different story a little bit.
Well, that means people are still creating software, still building apps, need to get things done for their companies. So, that fuels our industry. So good news is there's a lot of work to be done and probably more coming.
So Mitchell, for today's DevOps chat, I picked DevOps chats. I picked a few stories and interviews, but there's a theme behind it. And the theme behind it is something you're heading up at TechStrong Research, which is our DevOps Next report, which will be out probably, I guess, by RSA time frame, May. And what it really looks at is, so a lot of the different facets of what's driving the DevOps movement today, not from 12 years ago, but today and tomorrow. And so a lot of these topics that I selected for today are around these, fast movers within the DevOps movement itself. The first one was an article that I plucked off of devops.com. And it was a good article. It actually got a lot of views it's a pretty trendy subject, and it's platform engineering, the 2024 game changer in tech. Yeah, and by the way, that article is by Yossi Carmen. I don't know if it's a game changer in tech, but certainly platform engineering as a viable player within the software development life cycle and software development pipelines is real and growing and becoming ever more important.
It is, and it follows with kind of the platform theme you and I have kind of seen and know about. You've heard it from a lot of our customers and executives that you've talked about, of thinking more of DevOps as a platform, not DevOps as a tool chain, right? As a series of, independent, unique, standalone tools. But it's interesting because it seems like you can't throw a stone without either hitting something that says AI or platform engineering. Those tend to be pretty hot topics, which I suppose is, why claiming 2024 is the year of platform engineering. I think what it's about is an extension, is at least in part, an extension of the whole developer productivity wave that kicked off with the early kind of tough times starting in the tech industry a couple of years ago, year and a half ago, and a big focus on developer productivity. Well, guess what? Platform engineering added to its kind of mantra or its discipline, internal developer portals, things like that. Now more platforms and standardizing. So it is, I don't know if it's 25% less, get 25% more, like you mentioned earlier, but it is getting more from the same or less resources.
Yep. I think also specific, first of all, look, I wouldn't put platform engineering anywhere near AI.
No.
Right? I mean, AI is just, AI is civilization changing.
Yeah.
Platform engineer is another incremental thing. But in my mind, I think one of the reasons we've seen platform engineering gain the popularity it is because no one was really comfortable with the idea of a DevOps engineer. What exactly was a DevOps engineer?
Good point. Yeah.
And, it was kind of a nebulous, but yet, there were plenty of jobs for DevOps engineers.
Yep.
But when I first started DevOps.com, a DevOps engineer, the requirements were you had to know Chef, Puppet, and Ansible. Maybe a little Jenkins. That hardly qualifies as a DevOps engineer today.
Yeah, not easy.
That being said, a lot of people always said that wasn't a real title. It wasn't a real job. And I think platform engineer is a better handle to at least express some of what the DevOps engineers were doing. Make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I think it's got a little more structure around it. Kind of being an engineering discipline is about creating standard platforms and tools and processes, and maybe subsuming some of the DevOps engineer role, maybe not, just depends on the organization. Infrastructure as code. This article that you referenced does a nice job of kind of categorizing what it is in the focus of platform engineering. So to be honest with you, I never understood the DevOps is not a job title. Anything's a job title in my world. I mean, what do you want?
If someone's willing to pay you, it's a job.
Yeah, I'll wear whatever label that helps us, right? And so that was one of those philosophical arguments, which I didn't have a dog in that hunt, so didn't really matter to me.
Okay, let's move on to another DevOps.com article if we can. But it's actually, again, it fits this theme I've been working on, right? Which is the part of DevOps Next. And this is an article again on DevOps.com, and it's called Driving the DevOps Evolution, ArgoCD, Tekton, and Seamless Migrations. And it's by Siva Gurunathan, right? And you can check it out on DevOps.com. We'll have the link in the notes. But, Mitchell, I think what this was about is clearly, when we talk about CI/CD, we've seen an evolution of the CI/CD tools and the platforms and everything else, right? When I first started DevOps.com, Jenkins was probably 90+%, I bet you, of the CI/CD market. And, then with the rise of cloud native, I think that's had a huge effect on CI/CD. And we saw Jenkins X, which I don't believe is still being maintained or is still a viable, well, viability is a whole different word. I don't think it's officially maintained anymore. But, we saw a lot of commercial CI/CD products, probably one of the most successful being like Harness. But then specifically, we saw CI/CD in the age of GitOps. Right. Because, and that ArgoCD seems to be the big GitOps CI/CD tool. It's an open source tool run by Linux, CNCF. Well, the people at CodeFresh had a lot to do with it. My friend Dan.
Absolutely.
But CodeFresh just this week was announced, right? Was acquired by Octopus Deploy. Which leads me to believe maybe they weren't monetizing the open source ArgoCD project as much as they had hoped or what have you. Or
a lot of companies have struggled with that model, right? It's not.
Yeah,
it's
and
not
especially in these
success.
times. Yeah, in these economic times, VCs are a little impatient. But in any event, there's also Spinnaker has come along. Or Spinnaker was always there, but it's gotten much better, much more wieldy and usable. You don't have to be Netflix and Google to use it.
Right.
So you've got Spinnaker, you've got Harness, you've got Argo, you've got Tekton, right? And a lot of people are saying ultimately that's where you should move. And there's a lot in this article about, moving or adopting Tekton, and good for them. But what it really points to me is DevOps Next, right? DevOps isn't going anywhere. CI/CD is certainly not going anywhere. But the tools we're using the platforms we deploy and develop on, they're changing.
They are.
And so the CI/CD tools are keeping up, and it's all good. We of course do the CD Foundation show with the folks at the Continuous Delivery Foundation. We talk a lot about these things. But again, it's just, DevOps isn't going anywhere in terms of leaving the scene. It's just, some of the names and faces are being changed to protect the innocent or guilty.
It's the evolution of DevOps, right? The good news is one of the pieces of good news is it's not static. It's not stuck in what we thought of DevOps 5 years ago. And 5 years ago, we kind of matured the things that what we were doing. Yes, CI/CD got better, and we extended into more parts of the workflow, the DevOps pipeline. And now we seem to see sort of I don't want to label it next gen, but it is kind of that thinking about it. Well, how do we build our process around, a Kubernetes like kind of platform, cloud native kind of platform? How do we think about this as multiple pipelines and workflow, not just code arriving in the repository and spin up a build process and toss it into an environment? I don't mean to minimize what it does, but a lot more sophisticated things are going on now where multiple applications have multiple threads and pipelines of code and coordination and elements that are dependent upon each other. Our world's more complex. So I think the GitOps and the CI/CD tools are getting more sophisticated. They have to keep pace.
Absolutely. But good. It's not a bad thing. I encourage it and welcome it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So again, those are my two kind of DevOps next themes, Mitch. The next thing I wanted to bring, actually the next two things really you're closely involved with. One is a TechStrong TV interview you did, right? And let me just make sure we get it here. Securing source to production, and you spoke with TestifySec's Cole Kennedy.
Yeah, Cole's the co-founder and CEO there. And one of the most fun interviews to do, I know you enjoy this too, is talking to entrepreneurs and kind of knowing where they are in that cycle of starting, building, growing, their company maturing. And Cole's another great example of, well, I was doing this job and I really had a tough time of getting all the information together, all the attestations together to validate that where components came from. And are things really the software we think it is that's going into our supply chain? And so he started TestifySec with another co-founder and really thinking about, he calls it an observer role. You kind of need this observer role, not that it's a person. It would be in the physical world, but this observer world that's kind of collecting and managing as you're going through your workflows, the artifacts, the assets, the attestations that will help you in the end validate, here's what our software is and here's how we can prove it, rather than here's a mound of data from all of our DevOps tools and build tools and everything else. Go extract out of that, after the fact, some semblance of demonstrating artifacts and provenance and et cetera of we did build it the way we said we were going to build it. So it's a great solution. We've always talked about kind of the data exhaust coming out of DevOps and CI/CD. Let's use that data. Now he's taking the Testify organization, their team, into that next level. And they have some announcements coming up at KubeCon. They're going to be there. So I had a great time talking with. It's just fun to talk to fellow entrepreneurs. I love the enthusiasm too, man, because they just want to tell you their story, right? Yep.
Yeah, but nevertheless, so that one's on TechStrong TV, and again, we'll put the link to it in our notes. Mitch, the last thing we have on the docket for today on DevOps Chats is an article you wrote, TechStrong research article appeared on DevOps.com around a report you did with Redis. I guess that came out late last year.
Yeah, just right towards the end of the year, we were working with Redis on, I as a generalist, you kind of do a lot of different things. I've done a little bit of security, a lot of security, some networking, I used to be a DBA database person, all that stuff. And of course, caching was kind of this one thing you did. You enabled caching like you do on a web server, right? You might, flush the cache or whatever. It's so much more sophisticated. There are different patterns of transactions and data acquisition coming out of not just databases, but other sources. Could be applications, could be a cloud native applications. And it was a lot of fun working with the Redis people on this and kind of really seeing where the state of the art of it is and what's being applied in web applications, mobile applications, cloud native applications. So we wrote this report. It's called the Pulse Meter Report on Caching Transforming Data Application Performance, and really dove into So what are the challenges? Because it isn't just a feature you turn on now. You need to use the right pattern based on the characteristics of that kind of flow or transaction in your application. And the other challenge is, oftentimes you're using in a cache, you need to transform the data in a way that multiple sources kind of look similar so you can use that cache data, not one source looks this way and another source totally foreign way of representing the data. And that's a data management problem, not a DBA or a developer problem, but they've got some really nice tools to help with that transformation. So the article's about the report and some of the things that we learned. The report is free. You can download it, easy to get access to. It's on DevOps.
How can you download
it? There's a link in the article, and we'll include a link in our description for both the article and how to download the report.
Beautiful. It was a nice piece of work on that one too, Mitchell.
Thank you.
Report.
Thank
I
you.
remember it. Good stuff.
They were great to work with, and it was some good work. And you helped on that one too. I remember
I remember I did some writing on it.
Feedback on it. Yeah, writing.
Yep. Cool stuff. So, Mitch, that's what we had, in terms of references for today's DevOps chat. Anything fun you want to throw out there?
What'd you think of Dune 2, dude? Dune 2.
You know what? I was hoping you'd bring it up. Look,
I would.
First of all, I saw an interesting article. It's had the highest rating of any film in, I forget how long.
Really?
94% of people thought it was an exceptionally great movie.
Really? That's amazing. Yeah. That's hard to accomplish these days.
But you got to remember, I'm thinking the people who go to see this movie right away are Dune heads.
Who've
been waiting, a long time for this.
Fanatics.
Let's see how it plays in the Gen Pop, right? But that being said, I mean, kudos to Denis Villeneuve and the rest of the team. Because this got done during a writers and actors strike and all that too, right? That's why it was delayed a little bit.
It was supposed to be in November last year.
Yeah. But man, they killed it for me. When he got up there in front of all the Fremen and said to follow him, in essence, to paradise, and he is Paul Moadib Atreides. I was ready to throw on my still suit and go.
You were signing up.
Yeah, I'm signing up. I'll kill
you
those.
You were getting in your ornithopter and flying over there.
The theater I was in, those ornithopter were so loud, I felt like they were on top of me.
They were loud.
But yeah, what a great movie, man. I enjoyed the hell out of that movie. I cannot wait for Dune Messiah. I guess will be the third movie.
Yep. It's one
I'm
of
trying to remember back. Dune Messiah. Paul has disappeared. He's wandering. No one knows what happened to him.
Yeah, it's before the Children of Dune, right? It's
right. Then there's Children of Dune, and then there's Dune Emperor. I think the grandson is Leto.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Maybe the son is Leto. I don't remember. I'll have to go back and reread. It's a good reason to make you go reread it. But man, that was an amazing. Couple of things though. Number one, I think you and I both said that in the book, where it diverged from the book. In the book, Leah, whatever, his younger sister was born.
Spoiler alert. Yes.
by the revolution here. And then secondly, we didn't really get a lot into the Spacing Guild, and they definitely showed Bene Gesserit. And Fremen and the Landsat houses, but the Spacing Guild and how and the role Spice plays in that
holding of space for being able to do space interplanetary intergalactic space
light
travel,
speed kind of space. So it's so there's even more if they wanted to peel back some more. There's more. I loved it though, man. Highly recommend.
I felt like a little kid because I've just kind of shaking or jiggling my feet, or my wife is like, "Are you okay? Would you settle down?"
My wife's like, "I can't believe you're making me watch this," because she's not a Dune freak, though I made her watch every Dune movie and show and everything ever.
My family is into it, so that's nice.
But it brings up an interesting point. If you haven't read the books, is it worthwhile to go see the movie?
Well, my wife's not read the book. She's read a little bit of it, and she really enjoyed it. She thought it was a lot of fun. She's not a sci-fi nut like me.
Yeah.
But she does enjoy, sci-fi and fantasy and other genres. I think you could follow it along. I think you'd need to watch the first movie for the second one
you
to
definitely
really make
need
sense.
to watch the first for the second.
Yeah,
Yes.
that might be tough stepping into Dune 2 and going like, so what now? What happened? How did we get here?
What is this? Right.
Need the origin story, right? And this is the
Yep.
kind of second half of it.
No doubt. No doubt.
It was good.
So
I'm
Mitch,
just
can we end it?
disappointed we didn't get to see it together.
Thumbs
We've
up.
seen so many other
Well,
movies.
that's
We
why
were on
I
the
was
road
trying.
and-
I was trying to make that work, but I couldn't make it happen. Anyway, Mitch, let's call it a wrap on DevOps Chats.
You bet.
Thumbs up for Dune 2.
Thumbs up.
And
Been a lot of fun.
absolutely. So I hope you've enjoyed this. This is Alan Schimmel,
And Mitch Ashley,
and you've just listened to
DevOps Chats.